In the fictional Miami-Dade County city of Blue Bay, Carson Wheatley is the wealthy and spoiled teenage son of NASCAR racer Ted Wheatley. Carson hates his father, whom he blames for his mother Sandra's death. While he is at a raucous mansion party with his girlfriend, Rachel Thomas, Carson is introduced to pit crew worker Brandy Cox through his friend, Shane Hendricks, and takes a liking to her, going as far as kissing her. A few days later, Ted dies during a race after his car goes haywire and crashes. Detective Frank Walker is assigned to investigate and comes across several questionable circumstances. The car had contained an older engine part that was deemed faulty, and recalled on the open market, and had also been stored at Shane's garage the night before the race, despite Ted having hated him, as well as the security cameras missing 2 hours worth of footage from the same night. While reading the will, Ted's timid and bumbling lawyer, George Steuben, announces that Carson can only inherit Ted's money and estate once he turns 30 or marries. Carson is initially reluctant to marry but is shortly after that accused of rape by Brandy and jailed, with another partygoer named Linda Dobson claiming to be a witness. After this, Carson agrees to marry Rachel so they can inherit the money for an out-of-court settlement. Brandy agrees to a payment of $5 million, after which the charges are presumably dropped. She checks into a penthouse suite, engaging in a foursome with Carson, Rachel, and Linda. They are revealed to be co-conspirators in a scheme to inherit Ted's fortune and split the money amongst themselves. Meanwhile, Walker approaches Brandy, who is perturbed by his inquiries about her ties to Ted's death, which is now being investigated as a homicide. In a panicked state, she secretly meets Rachel, who tells Carson about the encounter. Carson plots to have Brandy murdered to prevent her from potentially giving any details of the conspiracy to the police. Rachel arranges to meet with Brandy to lure her to a cheap motel, where Carson believes they will trap and kill her. Unbeknownst to him, Rachel and Brandy are plotting to kill Carson so that Rachel can inherit as a grieving widow, and split the money between them. Rachel and Brandy then murder Carson by shooting him in the head and leaving a forged suicide note. Rachel inherits the Wheatley fortune but intends to murder Brandy to keep all the money for herself. Brandy, anticipating this, plots a scheme of her own to kill Rachel. Brandy lures Rachel to an old swamp cabin. They both try to kill each other, and though Brandy gets the upper hand, they get discovered. They are arrested and interrogated separately by Walker, who reveals that he knows they were poor girls who grew up together and plotted to find rich men to marry. Brandy incriminates Rachel by revealing hidden video CDs that show both Carson and Rachel tampering with Ted's car to cause his death and Rachel's bloodstained blouse from murdering Carson at the motel. Rachel is convicted of murder and sent to prison, while Brandy walks without legal implications. After closing the case, Walker retires and joins Brandy on a motor launch boat. He is revealed to be a bent cop getting a share of the Wheatley inheritance. However, Brandy betrays Walker at sea, stabs him to death, and throws his body overboard. She then flees to Antigua to meet with George, who is revealed to have secured the Wheatley fortune by dissolving all of Ted's enterprises and assets, and effectively being able to keep the money for himself. He has also presumably arranged for Rachel's killing in prison, which is concluded as a suicide by the police and media. Under the pretense of intending to marry her, George immediately betrays Brandy by handing her a briefcase with counterfeit bills, revealed to be rigged with C4, that kill her after blowing up her speedboat. George joins Linda on the island, having secured over $154 million from the conspiracy. Over the end credits, background details show George approaching Brandy at the swamp cabin. He had offered her a chance to exact revenge on Ted, who drove Brandy's father to commit suicide after buying out commercial fishing areas in their neighborhood, leaving Brandy's father jobless. Brandy then concocted the scheme with Rachel to infiltrate the Blue Bay wealthy elite to meet Carson and gain his trust. Rachel lied to Carson that Ted drove Sandra to suicide to manipulate him into murdering his father. Rachel also seduced Shane into giving her his keys to the garage after making love with him at the mansion party. She also revealed to Carson that she and Brandy conspired to bring false rape charges to set up a viable out for them to marry and immediately inherit the fortune. George presumably changed the will, unbeknownst to Ted and Carson, to manipulate it into fitting the conspiracy plan. He also placed the security footage from the garage and Rachel's bloody shirt at the cabin as evidence for Walker to find. He had known that Walker had a history of being a corrupt cop and would be easily swayed into letting Brandy go in exchange for the money.